Up next is a conversation with my better half, Dr. Christine Sanmiquel, a doctor of acupuncture and Oriental Medicine. Dr. Christine is a professor at Five Branches University, holds a PMP certification in project management, and specializes in women's health and pediatrics. She leads the Sacred Heart Qigong program, which is dedicated to teach energetics to women. If you find value in this conversation, consider subscribing to the channel and liking this episode. This helps us connect with more people like you. Here's the conversation with my better half, Dr. Christine.
Thank you for being here. This is I can basically do the podcast without you, so thank you for also being a guest. Double down.
Thanks for having me.
So you have multiple degrees, yeah, and you have been studying Chinese medicine and different forms, energetics and spiritual aspects of it. But how do you got here? Or how do you got interested in all this crazy world?
It's a good question. I love hearing people's kind of origin stories of how they got to Qigong. Mine was when I was 19. I moved from Vermont to Southern California for my undergraduate degree. And I was very science girl at the time. I was doing a pre-med program. And I had heard that there was a class called Nature, Movement, and Meditation, and that it was interesting and also an easy A, which sounded lovely to me at that time. But it was taught by this Qigong master from China, which I had no idea really what that meant at the time at all. It was just, I thought it was going to be like meditation and stuff, which it was. But the first day of class, he had us all sitting in a horseshoe, a class of maybe 35, 40 people, and a couple of them were friends of mine. And so I knew that it was a legitimate experience. It wasn't like a setup thing. So he stood behind them. So we're all in a horseshoe. He had maybe 6 people in the center of the room. And then he stood behind them and he would do these movements with his hands. And then he would do like a push forward and they would start to fall forward. And then he would do this and like pull them back. And I was like, what? I just remember being so, I don't know, it was like a moment, right? When something clicks and you're like, I don't know what that is, but I know I'm curious about it. So I got curious and I studied with that teacher for my last 2 years of college. I took all of the things he offered and ended up doing my senior thesis on Qigong and Parkinson's disease.
Do you think that the reason that you stay with him was because there's a lot of like snake oil person, and you know you go on the internet and you can see all these people doing all these movements, but like there's no marrow behind it. You think you stay because it's like the piece of you that understood what was happening, but your physical aspect of you didn't understand, and it was like some sort of incongruency, but it's congruent at the same time?
I think so. I think I've been very blessed with teachers that have the marrow, I guess, as you say. And I could tell that his heart was in the right place. Like he was very focused on the healing aspect of Qigong and really teaching people how to manage their own energy, right? I was just talking to the ladies in my Sacred Heart Qigong group about this last week, because he would come into class sometimes. I can remember 6 times he would come in and he would say, hey, I know that at least 5 or 6 of you are either high right now or drunk or have been drinking. and you need to leave. Like, you can't practice. And he was loving, but very firm about it. And I thought, okay. Like, that's a very clear, like, integrity piece to the Qigong work that I really respected. So yeah, I think that.
Okay, so from there, so you did your thesis. What was your thesis about?
Quality of life.
Quality of life and what?
For people diagnosed with Parkinson's and their caregivers. So I had kind of a two-prong study because I knew the stress of caring for someone, going through Parkinson's diagnosis was pretty intense. So I wanted to look at stress levels basically, and then like, can it actually affect the symptoms that the people were having of tremor and, problems walking and range of motion and things like that.
So you finished your thesis.
Yes.
Southern California. What's next?
Well, I graduated being like, this is it. This is what I'm going to do. I love this. I'm going to do Chinese medicine. I knew at the time, I saw acupuncture as kind of a gateway for people to get into Qigong. And so I graduated being like, I'm going to go into acupuncture school. Even though I had only had acupuncture a couple of times, my experience was much more rooted in the Qigong work. But then I moved back from Southern California back to Maine. And I went and second-guessed myself for a few years and wondered if I should, I was shooting on myself about it, that maybe I had, my grandfather was a voice. He was kind of the one in the family who he had gone to Brown, and like, he was the first one to go to college. And so he had that voice in my ear of like, why don't you want to be a real doctor? That was his line. Or like, you're smart enough, you could go be a real doctor. Why do you want to do all this like woo-woo stuff, So I debated, and I spent a few years waiting tables and just being with my family who I hadn't seen for a few years and wondering like, maybe I do want to do that. And I kind of found, I guess, a middle ground is what got me out of Maine. The second time I moved to Seattle, but I moved to Seattle to do the naturopathic medicine program. I didn't move there for their acupuncture program. And it wasn't until I was filling out the application of why do you want to be a naturopathic doctor kind of essay, right, in the application. And then I was like, I had that like deep felt sense that was just such a clear, like, no. And I was like, okay, if not naturopathic medicine, what do I want to do? And they had a great acupuncture program at the same school in Seattle. And so it was very science-based, which appealed to me at the time. And so I just changed gears. I just applied for the Chinese medicine program instead. So that's how I actually got there, was sort of like kicking and screaming a little bit. Or second guessing. I don't know. I didn't have I wasn't all in. You've actually said like driving with the brakes on, right? Like that was what I was doing. I was going in the direction, sort of.
You never checked one of the New England schools of acupuncture?
Well, at the time that I had decided to actually change gears, I was already on the West Coast. But yeah, I did look into the school in Boston, the New England College. And I liked it, but it was never a yes, which just wasn't meant to be. I don't know, but if I hadn't gone to Seattle, then I wouldn't have heard of Sifu Johnson either. So it was like an interesting, like it was actually in Seattle where I heard of him and his program for the Qigong.
So you enrolled in Bastille, yeah?
Uh-huh.
You enrolled in Bastille, and then how long until you find out about Dr. Johnson's program, Medical Qigong program, yeah?
Yeah. So it was probably in the spring that I heard it. So I started in the fall. It completed my first year out there. But by springtime, I was already recognizing that it was more of a science-based program than what I was expecting. I wanted more of what I think of as like the essence of Chinese medicine. Like I wanted more like Qigong and Tuina and like Tai Chi and like those kinds of things. And they only had at the time, this was in 2003, 2004. So the program may have changed since then, but they only had one Qigong class and one Tai Chi class taught by the same gentleman who I ended up like after the first day of class. Actually, it's just connecting now, but he had that same kind of essence or the marrow, I guess, that like my first teacher had. And after the first day of class, when he was teaching Qigong, I went up to the front of class and I sat down and I was like, how do I learn more from you? And I ended up shadowing him in his clinic for that year. So that was a great.
What do you mean clinic? Like he was also an acupuncturist?
He was also an acupuncturist.
And I was teaching Qigong movement classes.
Yeah, but he actually had like a Qigong teacher. Like that was his base also. Acupuncture was kind of like the flower, right? But his base was very much in like, he talked a lot about the lower dantian, and he had a teacher that like helped him build up. I didn't know what that meant at the time, but he would talked about this energy in the lower dantian and in his belly that his teacher helped him to cultivate, and that allowed him to be able to do the healing work and the teaching that he did. So yeah, he was great.
That he knew about Dr. Johnson, or how do you find out about it? Because it's 2004, the internet is a baby. Yeah,
he was still on his first clinical book, which is the big book of
the brown one, yeah.
Yeah. I found out about Dr. Johnson because he came up and taught a weekend seminar. So he traveled up to Bastille, and he went, I don't know if it was a 2 or 3 day class, but a friend of mine had signed up for the class. And then we had been talking, a group of friends, maybe 3 or 4 of us, but 3 for sure, all really wanted more out of our education. And we didn't know exactly what that would look like, but we knew we wanted more of the energetics, which to me is kind of how acupuncture works. So anyway, we had been kind of putting it out in the world, in the ethers, I guess, that we wanted this aspect to our education. And then Sifu came up and taught a class that my friend Tom went to, and he came back and he had bought the big book, and he was like, brought it to my friend Megan and I, and he was like, I found it. Oh my gosh, you guys, it's all in this book. And he got so excited. And then we found out that, he actually has a Qigong like practitioner program that was built into one of the acupuncture schools, 5 branches, university in Santa Cruz. So we made a vacation down to Santa Cruz and interviewed at the school and did a tour, and was really impressed by the level of care for the students that was there. Not that Bastille didn't care for their students, but it was much more a focus at 5 branches, at least in how they expressed it to us at the time, of like, we want you to take good care of yourself as you go through this program, which is why we have a Qigong program and why why they did things the way they did. Whereas Bastille was much more like what I would think of as like a traditional medical school, where you just push and push and push, and you push until you do well and fall over. So I liked the 5 branches kind of philosophy fit a lot better. So ended up transferring down there and doing the practitioner program there, only to realize once we got there, this was like divinely led. Like Dr. Johnson wasn't actually teaching the program anymore. He had established it, taught it for I don't know how long, and then left it for kind of his people that had been trained under him to teach. Still great. Not quite what we were expecting. And I remember so clearly, I walked by the administration office and I was just kind of cruising around 5 branches campus, and I looked over, and again, it was one of those moments, right, where it's like, oh, like a big yes came through of like seeing this flyer that looked like a book out of Sifu's, or looked like a page out of Sifu's books. It's like the same columns and stuff, pictures in black and white, but it was like Daoist mysticism course starting that next weekend, so like in a few days. And I was like, what's Daoist mysticism? But look, it's taught by Dr. Johnson. So I called the number on the thing, and then he picks up the phone, and it was just, again, that same, like, you could feel the marrow and the essence underneath, like, through his voice when he picked up the phone was so palpable of like, oh, yeah, like, I want to come check this out. I don't know what it is, but I'm going to go do that. Yeah, it's been an interesting, path of listening, I guess, even though I didn't necessarily know where I was going or why I was going there. I just knew, like, yep, nope.
So you start with him in 2004, learning in his house, yeah? So it's in his training hall.
Yep.
And that was Saturdays.
Yeah, every Saturday we would drive from Santa Cruz to Monterey. There was a group of 5 of us that decided to join. And that was parallel with the master's program. So full-time during the week in school. And then Saturdays we'd have like magic day, go down to Monterey. And I remember that first day of class, like there was a sense of feeling like at home.
How many people were in the
first class?
Oh, in the start in that class.
That started in the class, maybe 25?
Oh, okay.
30? I don't know. It got smaller. It got more intimate pretty quickly because I think people feel like either it's home or it's not, right? But there was probably 20-ish of us that continued for, a number of years. I was thinking about that the other day. Like, I stopped doing those classes right before Francisco came.
Yeah.
Before our son was born. It's like 8 years.
Almost
2004. Yeah. But it was like every Saturday. And I don't know, like, since, even though like now sometimes I'll open Saturdays in clinic, but I'm not like, I'm more protective of my Saturdays because like I did it for so many years that I don't know. I'm not ready to give them all up.
Yeah, plus it was like Saturday mornings, yeah. So it's like you have to wake up, drive, and then it's not like, and the drive from Monterey to Santa Cruz and different times of the year can be brutal.
Oh yeah, especially going back, we get stuck in traffic all the time. Sometimes we'd stay and like, go to the beach or, go out to lunch and kind of let the traffic go by. But
how's that doing all the esoteric training and sort of the energetics to it? And how was the decision for you to go to China and become a priest in Daoism? How was that? It was like, because up to this point, for what you're saying, is everything was a clear yes, yeah?
Right.
So when you got to like, oh, we going to the motherland, yeah? It's like, well, how is that for you? Or it was like, might as well, I'm here, let's do it. Because also you did all the training, yeah? It's like, you were a very committed practitioner and all this, whatever people say, you were doing the training. So you have built up enough marrow within your own, just that, and the moment to make those decisions is like, sometimes it's like, can be daunting for people. How was that for you? Also, it was your first time out of the country.
Well, that's what I was just thinking, actually, as you were saying. I was like, how was that for me? I haven't thought about that moment for a long time. Then I very much got the yes, like, in terms of like, should I go, should I not go? Right? Yes. Okay. How am I going to get there? I don't know. Have I ever left the country? No, not really. Canada, when you grow up in Maine, doesn't really count. That was the extent of my world travels when it came time. So I knew I was going to go, but I really didn't know how I was going to get there. And I also, it was interesting because I had done the trainings for a number of years, and I obviously felt connected to the practices, but I didn't necessarily feel super attached to the title. I wasn't like, oh, I want to go become a Daoist priest and then open a temple and teach us, I didn't have that big pull of like I feel like a lot of people go through like a ordination, they have like a clear path of how they're going to use that afterwards. Whereas for me, it was much more of a marriage to my walk. So it was like a wedding kind of to me. It was like, oh, I'm really fully committing to doing this work for the rest of my life. And I knew at the time that wasn't going to be like only within the wheelhouse of Taoism, even though that was the vehicle that like I had been trained in and studying, and it goes with the medicine that I practice really beautifully. But yeah, I feel like it was a different experience. But I did actually get there, so that was great. It was an amazing experience. Couple days of ceremony. I mean, you've seen all of it.
What I see about
What's that?
it's like every year is for each person is the experience is like completely different. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I have been over there and talked to people, and I'm like, that's not how it happened. Yeah. So I'm like that's more for you to like, how is that? Because it's like I have to. I'm kind of gonna guess there was a lot, yeah, because it's like,
and interesting
it is not for people to listen, yeah. This is no Beijing, Shanghai. This is like rural China,
right? Yes, this is in the mountains.
Yeah.
Very rural China, which honestly I preferred. Like if I were to go back to China, I like kind of the sleepy hillside versus like the hustle and bustle of the cities. We did spend time in Beijing, which was fun. But going back to the ceremony and this kind of marrow concept that has come up today is like, it's all in Chinese. Like I didn't know what they were saying. So I was put in a position to really just feel and like notice. And it was really intense. Like I remember standing there in the robes and the hat, and you've got the tools, and I remember like physically trembling. And I was like, okay, I'm not making this up. You know what I mean? Like there's definitely things happening in my body right now, even though I don't know what they're saying, right? Like there's a transformation, and they do different aspects of it. Like they have like ceremonial fires, and then they have like that thing where you go and like the boat goes out to the water down the river, and like it's a couple days of different ceremonies, and you can feel it even when you're not in the ceremony, just when you enter that gate of the I'm missing the word. It's like microphone in front of me. Yes, thank you. Yeah, but when you walk through those gates, like it's palpable, the difference. So that was actually interesting. I don't know. I mean, I never would have thought that's where I would land. If I asked my high school self or even in college, like, oh, like someday you came back, you were like, oh, someday you're going to go to China and be ordained in this big ceremony. I'd be like, that's not real.
I don't think our generation, maybe the new generation, but I don't think our generation, none of us went and say, oh, I want to be a healer. I want to be an acupuncture. I might be rare. I might find one or two, yeah. But maybe the new generation is more, they have more exposure to these things. But for us, it was like, no.
I had never heard of really acupuncture before I went to Southern California. Also, I'd never been to Southern California before I went to college out here. I never visited. I just went.
I never heard of acupuncture until like met Dr. Johnson.
Wow. In Argentina, they didn't have, or you didn't,
they have a lot of homeopathy over there for sure. But, it's like, if you want to, it wasn't an acupuncture school. I don't think there are a few now. but back on the day, it was, you have to go to like Chinatown. And
Oh,
it's
wow.
like, you know, and trust those needles. They were like, you know, clean needle. I mean, they might have been clean, but there wasn't a single-use needles back in
Right.
the day.
Right.
And the Argentinian Chinatown was very small. It's bigger now, but it used to be very small. So I never heard of, I was exposed to a lot of energetic and spiritual teachings.
Yeah.
But never like to acupuncture. And that's the reason that when I met Dr. Johnson, the whole idea was like him and I, we were talking about try to find commonalities and the different trainings that we had.
Yeah.
So you went to China,
I went to China,
how, and then come back.
then came back, and then I did that. It was my last year of acupuncture school. So that winter, so the springtime, I was studying for boards, finishing up school, doing the triathlon,
Yeah.
you know, like you do.
And finish up the doctor program, the Medical Qigong doctor program.
That had started, so that overlapped because I graduated in 2009,
Okay.
took the boards, and then started practice. And then our Qigong doctorate started in 2008.
2009.
Started in 2009?
So you
Gosh,
graduated
we sort of
in
blend.
2010.
No, I was licensed in
Or late in the fall of 2009.
spring. I graduated. I took the boards in the fall.
Okay.
But yeah, there was like a year of overlap between those two programs. So I was actually doing a doctorate while I was finishing my master's. It's all kind of a blur. It was just like, I'm just going to keep training.
Yeah.
And it was, you know, when you find community was a big part of it, right? It's like, I met you there and like all the friends that we had like during that time of like my acupuncture training and Taoism and Qigong, it was like, that really made it, I don't know, it made it easy to keep training, really, because like everyone, I had like a nice solid group around me that was also interested in doing that and working on ourselves and growing and healing, and you know, it makes it easy to be consistent when there's people around you versus if I was, you know, in a different situation that might have been very different.
What are your parents thought when you were like, tell them, I'm going to China? Did you ever tell them what you were going to do in China?
No.
Did you tell them that you're going to China?
Yes, I did. Oh, my parents were so sweet. First of all, they were really just always super supportive of all like the random things I would throw at them. Like even just me moving to California for school was a big shift for them because my family doesn't really travel that much, or they didn't at the time. And then when I told them, I used to get I still somewhat get vasovagal syncope. So I get very faint if I get like blood drawn or something. So growing up, I would faint, and I hated needles. I hated like blood, anything having to do with like medicine. I really didn't. I was just very skittish about. And so when I told my parents I wanted to be an acupuncturist, they were like, "What? Okay." But they were always like, "Okay, like we see you're happy. We want you to be happy. Go do like what you want to do." So that's like kind of their base of parenting for me, which was so wonderful. Because when I did meet Dr. Johnson, it was actually interesting because when I grew up, we were Pentecostal. We were like very Catholic till I was in first grade. And then we left that church and went and explored Pentecostal church for, when did we leave that? I went into middle school. So first grade through elementary school, basically. I was in a Pentecostal school and church. And that this was a big part of my growing up. And then the first day when I met Dr. Johnson, I was sitting in his class in the Quone, and I was like listening to him talk and like just taking it all in. And he was like, he was like talking about like when he used to be like, he would play music at the church, and he would like da da da, and he was like Pentecostal Christian. And I was like, what? And it was like, he like, no way, like he's Pentecostal too, like. Not only did it feel like home at the time, but it was also, he mentioned something that was like a big part of my growing up. And so when I introduced the idea of like me studying with this guy on Saturdays, like to my parents, I was able to share that he was also, he also loved Jesus a lot in like a way that my parents really understood. Yeah. And so that was, a big, I guess, trust builder for them. So when they like came out to visit and they met him like at our graduation, was that the first time they met him? I can't remember. Maybe Five Branches graduation. Anyway, when they did meet him, they were just like already like appreciated him because they saw him as like, okay, this is like, she's not going to church anymore. But she's got, some guidance. And so I think they appreciated that wisdom, and guidance that he was imparting. So when I did, it's a very long-winded answer to your question. But when it came time to go to China, I wasn't sure. I was very shy about the Daoist priest part. And I actually held that pretty close. Even like at clinic at Five Branches, like I didn't share that with a lot of people. Like for me, it was very like, at the time it felt like it was very intimate and personal. And I didn't want that like broadcasted, which looking back now, I can see that there was also maybe a little bit of like, I didn't want to be judged either, because I think it's something that people don't really understand. And so yeah, I didn't tell my parents that I went to do the Daoist priest thing until a couple years after it happened. And I remember standing in the kitchen and telling my mom. And it was so funny because she knew that there was something else. And she just like laughed and she like gave me the biggest hug. And she's like, I'm so proud of you. And I was like, oh, can we get a little teary now thinking about it? But still that like undercurrent of like support no matter what, like, as long as they saw I was happy and growing and like working towards something that I loved, like they were all for it. And even our wedding, actually, we had a really pretty, lovely Daoist ceremony. Like, that was very new for my family to like be a part of that. And I think they could feel the marrow too, They had that like, oh, like there's some depth here.
Yeah, it's interesting because I always see two camps. It's not a middle term on this. Yeah, either people broadcast to the world, I'm a Daoist priest and I do all these things, or they keep it very quiet.
Right.
And my thing with that is like, that's okay if you want to keep it quiet. It's perfect. It's like, but why?
Right.
Even the other one, yeah. And if you broadcast it to the world, yes, why?
Why? Yeah.
It's like you have to have a level of understanding of like, you do it for vanity, you do it because you're ashamed of it, or you do it just because, no, it's just yours. Yeah. And I think that it's always those two camps. It's always very interesting with it. Yeah, I mean, with all of this, yeah, so I was asking how many people in your class, because my math is like, Sifu started teaching Taoism, and it was like all the classes that you put in together, it was like 400 or 500 people.
With the DMQ too?
Yeah, the 3 classes. Also, it was like he used to do like what he used to do with the Qigong. It was Qigong A, Qigong B, but it was a version of that.
Okay.
So
yeah.
That way, plus all the seminars and stuff. But yeah. So now you're the priest. He just got married apparently. And then you've been training very hard. Yeah. I mean, I don't know if you're committed to your training.
Yeah.
I don't think the hard part is the right word, but it takes a level of commitment to do this training, this surgery training, and run a business and stuff like that. But all of the sudden, you get pregnant. So what happened next with your training?
What happened with my training? Well, it shifts when a woman's pregnant anyway, so I'm not doing the same kinds of activities.
Well, the reason because I don't hear anybody talk about this.
How the training shifts.
I think, especially in Daoism, yeah, and in Buddhism, and they don't talk for women how to is like, well, when you having these things in life, yeah, you become pregnant, or like even in your period, they don't talk much, and you talk to some of the teachers, and they're like, they get very weird about it. So having someone like you, they have done the training and they have put the time and having an understanding of the manifestations and what happened in your body, you know, it's like, I think it's a valuable experience for all of us. And that's the reason that I think your class that you've been teaching, you know, that is a wonderful opportunity for ladies that want to do this work, and, you know, so much overwhelmed with everything, yeah?
There's so much.
Yeah. So how do you deal with this? How do you put things on the side?
Yeah. I think when I was pregnant, I really enjoyed playing in like more of like the Shen Gong, and doing like, I wasn't doing as much active, you know, Daoist 5 or like Qigong practices as much. I was doing more meditations, and I really loved connecting with like that. There's a, you know, the experience of there's another spirit in your body. Like I was home to two spirits for a period of time, and that is, you really can't describe it. Like, I know we were talking the other day about like postpartum depression and things like that, and I was sharing actually with a patient too, who was open to these kinds of ideas, but I was like, you know, talking about when you're pregnant and how you have two souls in you, you know, and when you give birth you go back to having one, but there's still that imprint in your body of the two, and sometimes if that can sometimes feel very like there's a lot of grief and like sadness or anger, like things that come up around that. And you have this new small person that you're responsible for that's on the outside. Like, it's a whole nother, you know, shift in identity and, you know, practices. I remember actually a teacher that I was studying with at the time, you know, she's a female teacher, and she was very in the birth world. And I remember like when Francisco was born, she was like, your practice for the next 6 to 8 weeks is to stare at your baby. And it was such a clear and obvious thing, but it was so like relaxing to me to hear it, like someone actually say that. Like, yes, you can do meditations and you can do prayer and, you know, whatever it is that feels good, but also like that is a practice of like mothering and like holding space for that person, you know. I didn't think I was going to cry during our conversation, but I'm not terribly surprised.
Yeah, I would have take like, yes, for sure.
You would have put somebody on that.
Yeah, I would have put money on the crying.
I'm the crier. But I think that's part of it too. I think pregnancy, like Qigong in and of itself, like really, especially for women, I think because we do store in the heart, you know, once a month if you have a regular cycle, it does accelerate that emotional alchemy. We were talking today in class about like this sort of tenderness that shows up and like this aspect of self-love that we maybe aren't tapped into all the all the time. One of the women was sharing, like, for her, when she stores in the middle dantian, in the heart area, that's what shows up for her, is like this very tender, like, reminder of that self-love. Anyway, yeah, pregnancy was, I super enjoyed that aspect of, you know, I had such a good awareness of my body and my energy going into pregnancy that I feel like I felt, and I got to experience deeper levels of pregnancy, I guess, that I would have imagined.
You think that those deeper level of pregnancy was because all the previous training that you have done, like overflowing the lower dantian and like the microcosmic orbit and all aspects of the microcosmic orbit and all that?
It makes sense to me that it would be.
Because all those channels were awakening already.
Yeah. Like, I could feel so much, you know, sensations in the body. And I work with pregnant women all the time in my clinic, so I see a wide variety of experiences in terms of sensation. So I don't know. I mean, I've been pregnant once and I've only had my particular experience with it, so I can't really speak to if it would have been different if I didn't do that training. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But theoretically, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was interesting. Pregnancy was a wild time.
Yeah, we had when you were going through the pregnancy, yeah, we had a interesting set of events happening. Yeah, so I guess it was all about our training.
It's all in the gong, right?
Yeah.
It's all training. What was that like for you, like when I was pregnant? From like a energetic, your practice and kind of your priorities and...
Well, it's interesting, yeah, because like, so if you're going back, I remember texting Holder, and I text him. I said, Christine is pregnant, but she doesn't know yet. And then I think it was Valentine's Day or something like that.
Yeah.
All the Italian grandmas, and during Christmas, they were on like, are you pregnant?
That's right. I forgot that. Everyone thought I was pregnant that Christmas. I was not yet, but soon to be.
I think it was a roller coaster of emotions for me. It was like, you know, it's like, I think for me, or I think for most men, the brain switch into like, you know, whatever it is, you have to make more money. Yeah.
You have to be the provider game, has to step up.
And it's challenging because, you know, it's like with living and doing all the Daoist training, Buddhist training, whatever, yeah. And also be a provider. Sometimes those two roles, I think up to back on the day, and still today, yeah, it's like, it's challenging for people to be able to step in both places at once. Yeah. And you see the make different choices. But yeah, for me, it was like terrifying at times, and my brain, it was always like, it's like, what is the next move? Yeah, to make this whole thing work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, and it's kind of weird because like you got pregnant and then you went back to finish your doctorate.
After Francisco was born.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You went to finish your DAOM.
Mm-hmm. 2 more years.
2 more years. So I was with baby for a lot of times of those 2 years.
Yeah.
And then when you finished that, I went and started my MBA program in Pepperdine. Yeah. So it was a tag team force.
It was definitely a tag team. Yeah. I remember seeing like a shift in you that was very sweet and also very like protector kind of archetype of like, I felt very cared for when I was pregnant. And it was very sweet to see like the things that you would think of to help, like that I wouldn't have even thought of, but it was like a little thing. I just knew like whatever I needed, like you were going to be there. If I just said like, I don't know, I remember you like running out to Target and like getting a thermos one day so I could have lunch at work. Like, just those shifts and gears of like, I could feel your awareness really like envelop and come like support us, like the three of us, even though we only were two on the outside. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yeah, it was very sweet. But I think that is a challenge for, especially because you were so like on a trajectory of growth and, having a family and doing this work is different. It's like a different set of practice, right? It's like the challenges are different, the joys are different, but it's like I don't know.
Well, I think it was a great 7-year pause for me.
Yeah.
Because after the type of work that I was doing at that time, and dealing with the type of people and clients that I was dealing with, you're stronger as your weakest link.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to make sure to go back to the corporate world and make sure he had the tools to defend himself or like, fight for himself. And then after that, it was like almost inevitable to come back to what I'm doing now again.
Mm-hmm.
So, what was that? So you finished, now you're pregnant and going to your doctorate with a baby, start a clinic. How's that been for you? How things in your practice have changed? How you practice have changed after you got pregnant?
Yeah, I think that those early mom years, like having a clinic and doing that work, and I don't know, I would say my practice got more fluid. Like I was doing more what they call like out-of-pocket practices, right? And doing practices either while I was caring for Francisco or like while I was doing like caring for the home. Like I would do mantras or meditations. Like, I don't know.
What out-of-pockets?
It means like not like wake up, go sit on the cushion for however long, and then that's like your practice time, right? It became much more like through like that saying of like you don't have your spiritual life and your normal life, you have one life. It became more of that actually, which I think really has been such a blessing, because I really do like it feels much more seamless now, whereas before I definitely fell more into that, like it's practice time and then it's whatever other identities that I was doing at the time, or like clinic time, and now it's like much more seamless, I guess. Yeah.
So you've been doing all these practices, training with, you have a lot of training in Buddhism as well, and Daoism. What was the one of, I don't know if it's one of the interesting pieces, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Is usually there are more women that are interested in this practice in the start, yeah? This is a lot of like
Qigong, like
I think Qigong is part of it, yeah, but and then it's like like everything, yeah, you start in martial arts and I say, well, aside from punching someone on the face, what else is in there, yeah?
Yeah, what are we doing?
And then you go, oh, it's energetic, as a metaphysical fighting. Oh, great. And then you go, so well, what else is in there? And I'm like, and then you go and you start the spiritual journey, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's usually in classes, especially medical Qigong classes and things of that nature, it's usually more like 70%, 60 to 70%. It's shifting now more, but in the beginning it was more women than men.
Yeah.
And I think it's like, because, you know, you have to heal from the past and you have to get in touch with your icky feelings and all that. So guys, usually takes a longer time to do so. But now you start your class and you're teaching these ladies, yeah. What is the thing that you were, when you start this process, is, oh, I went through 5 branches and I saw this flyer about this crazy dude teaching esoteric.
Yeah.
It was a Daoist mysticism. That was the name of the class. Daoist mysticism. And what would you like if you go back? Yeah, what is the sort of the advice that you give your self about what the training and the things that would you like to know beforehand? Because you know a lot of this training is designed for the priests or the monks who live in the monasteries. Not designed for any of us, basically.
Yeah.
But especially not designed for women.
Right. It's such a good question. I feel if I were to go back, what would I tell?
Yeah.
Like 20-year-old me or whatever, however old I was. I feel like I would tell myself kind of exactly that. Like it's all practice. Like it's all work with a capital W, you know, in terms of like how we interact with people and how we show up and how we cook our food and how, you know, like I would tell her more about like yes, I was talking with the ladies in the Sacred Heart Qigong group about this too, is like if you're in a doctorate program and you're training for a certain accomplishment, you know, you need to do what your sifu says in terms of, or your teacher says in terms of training time, right? So it's like there's like an hour in the morning and there's an hour at night, and like yes, you need to do that, and there's also like all of it is our life. So I think I would talk more to that and have a little bit more grace, I think, for myself in terms of, I don't know, I think at the time I was still very much in like a perfectionist kind of a, now I see it as like that side of me was a bit of my protector. Like I would protect with perfectionism and I would, you know, want to do things exactly right. And so, you know, going through these things, like that's not what it really looks like. Excuse me. It's, you know, it's messy at times. Like you go through your stuff and like there's a lot of feelings and things that show up, and I would have a bit more grace for myself around like what that looks like, or, you know, just like surrendering into that a bit more than I think I fought it a little bit. Of like, no, I can muscle through, or like, I don't know. I think I would speak to that.
So basically it's like, aside from, because I think what happened is people don't realize to gather a new skill, you have to carve time somewhere else in your life. I mean, the morning practice, the evening practice. I mean, if you're going to be a holistic practitioner, yeah, that's just maintenance.
Right.
There's nothing that is not, you're not gathering new skills.
That's the maintenance phase.
That's you just maintenance, yeah. It's the same thing, the shower, brush your teeth, you know.
Yeah.
And that's it. That's if you are a clinician, yeah. If you're a clinician, your morning practice is like okay, clean the slate, let's go to work. Evening practice, so you just once again clean the snake, go to sleep.
Yeah.
But I think what is like, well, what else are you gonna put there, and how do you? I don't think people talk about this and the length the things take, especially for this type of training. It's like, well, you have to do this practice until the manifestation shows up, yeah?
Which could be 7 years from now.
Yeah. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But I think that's the case. It's like, I think people confuse, I do my morning practice. That's just maintenance. You just told me in the physical world is that I should shower this morning. That's I'm like, you don't get a trophy for that, shower. Yeah? You don't get a trophy for that, but what else are you doing?
Yeah.
And for you guys, it's like, how do you, in your class, how do you tell that to the ladies? Yeah, because it's like, you have to modify the training also.
Oh, yeah, because there's women in there who have never done Qigong before, and then there's women in there who, are already about to have their doctorate in Chinese energetic medicine, and also acupuncturists, and some of those, there's just a really wide experience level. I think the focus for that group is really on the self-cultivation piece, and like, how are we able to understand our experience in this physical body, energy body, spirit body, and then how do we kind of design our lives so that we have practices that support us being able to do the things that we want to do and to show up the way we want to show up, right? And a lot of that is about getting to know our own individual manifestations of our spirit in this body, right? So, yeah, we're learning about cycle health, and I'm keeping it, focused on the female body for this particular group, because it's a kind of a common ground, right? Even though some of the women are still like menstruating and some of them are menopausal, like there are ways that we can connect and support each other and learn together that really accelerate any of the work that we're doing. Like we were talking about the idea of, like a share, like when you come together in a community, there is like a expanding of knowledge, right? And so it's like, I think we were talking about this the other day. It's like the expanding of like a library, right? So if I go and do a training, there's like a collective growing that happens, right? Even if I don't necessarily come and like do a PowerPoint presentation on that topic, right? It's like the energy that I come with is different, and that's going to impact the energy of the group. That makes sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's been interesting though, speaking to kind of the varied experience levels. And I, sometimes I'll speak very directly to the women who have more experience. And, today I was talking about different channels and things, and I will pause and say, if this isn't making sense to you right now, it's okay. Like, don't clench, like, don't tense your energy because you don't understand. Like, rather just listen to it as if it's music, and know that you're going to come back and like already hear, when you hear that again, you're going to get a different level of it. So sometimes there are things that I'm sure are confusing for the new folks. And then, for the folks who have more experience, I think you and I are always going to be like the foundational cheerleaders. I always will go back to the foundations of things, even having practiced these things for, however many years since I was 20. But like, I'll always go back and look at like, how do I think about chi? And like, how do I think about the flow or feel the flow, or, just have a different experience of that same information.
Yeah, I mean, to me, having the foundations of the essential training I don't like when people call them the beginner's training because it's not such a thing as beginner's training.
Yeah.
Having that solidify and re-understand.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, well, I got it. Great. Just do whatever, and then come back in a couple of years and revisit that. You got it. Say, oh, no, I miss all these things. And I'm like, great. Now you have changed and evolved, changed and transformed. Now you're having a better understanding of what is that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I think that is the key. Yeah, go back and revisit that. I have in my phone the first year of classes with the first year he'd allow us to record classes.
That was a big moment.
For the Daoist mysticism classes. And every year I go and I listen, I have, I don't know, like 100 hours or something like that. I go back and listen at random, it's just like shuffle a few.
See what you get for the day.
On that folder. And, it's like every year is like different, So really it's like more information of it. So going back to the essential is great. And I think also the amazing thing that you offer and these classes that are just for the ladies is because in my experience being a teacher of like energetics and esoterics, a lot of them got abused by male teachers, even female teachers,
Yeah.
due to the abuse in different aspects, is it physical, mentally, it's like it's a lot of them. There's a lot of bad people out there. So when you're offering like that, I think they give you guys a more of the solid and commodity to feel safe.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is creating a space that feels safe. It's interesting, I think a lot of people that come into a healing profession have had, they go through their own healing, right? And so there's going to be like...
Nobody wakes up and say, I want to be a medical Qigong practitioner. Right. No one. It's usually if you got any sort of person in there, it's the random ones that you can find and say, I don't know, my friend is doing this, so I'm going to show up with her, but whatever, But most of them is like, oh no, this saved my life.
Yeah.
I'm a great, and I want to help with others.
Right.
Right.
That becomes, very much so.
So it's the same thing that happened with like psychology, So it's like, I tried to figure it out myself.
Yeah.
And then I started school, So no one, and I always tell everyone in class, I don't care your background, I don't care your social status, I don't care anything. I can guarantee that you coming for a broken place.
There's been hurt.
Something has happened to you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the ones they go like, no, my life is perfect. It's like, you are, and like when things unravel for you, it's gonna be very interesting journey.
Yeah.
So offering that for the ladies is great.
Yeah, it's been good. It's been interesting. I've had more than I expected of the fellas approach me and say, hey, we also want to know these things, which I love.
I never thought that because they come and complain to me.
They're like, why is she not let the guys in there?
Why is only for the chosen few? And I'm like, hey, She's like, it's different information. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not like, I mean, there is theory that I'm teaching, and I'm definitely going to offer something for the fellas, like, to attend, because I do think it's important for men to know, the differences in their to support, wives and moms and daughters and students and patients.
If they're practitioners, yeah. So in the clinic, you get more
female patients. Yeah, so I do 100% here, and I really love that they're asking, and that it's definitely coming down the road very soon. It is in the works. And this particular, Monday class has been really to have a container for us to actually practice together and to have that community and that, a bit more of like ceremony and sharing, right? So it's like a space for women to come and be like, hey, my cycle's doing this. Like, hey, I'm, whatever. But it's, we're not just learning about like Qigong for breast health. It's like we're actually doing the practices of caring for our breasts, like when we're together in a class. So it's a feminine container, which I think actually it would have been nice to have had that. I feel like I found that in my own journey, like through different, teachers that I've had along the way, and like friends and things that have just shown more of a light, I guess, on like what a feminine practice can look like.
I know, but there's also a lot of wacky people out there.
Yes.
Teaching this.
Teaching what?
Well, what you teaching is like, it's like take care, like the breast, the cycles. If you're in menopause, it's the cycles, is governed by the state, the moon is all that. Yeah, that's great. And you bring a lot of the scientific background in it.
Right.
But there's some people teaching the same stuff. They are all over the place.
Yes. Yeah. So it's a very grounded container, I would say. Yeah. That's like, thank you for differentiating that. It is, we talk about.
There's science behind it, yeah?
Yeah. And there's, that's ultimately where I want to help support these women, is like really understanding their own body and their own experience, and then have, kind of that basic energetic hygiene of like how to care for themselves. And then we were just talking about this today, actually, having like a toolbox on the side that is like, okay, I have mastitis. I know to do, add in these different points and like do these different motions, and like you can kind of tailor make your own practice ultimately. So that's, it's just been really lovely. It's been such a nice container for me too, because it's helped me as a teacher to expand out, because up until this group, I've taught primarily to other acupuncturists, like either in the master's or doctorate program, or Qigong practitioners, and some to the public. But this has been like really lovely to have, like, there's not a syllabus. I'm used to having that, like, okay, we have this many weeks together and this is exactly what we're going to cover, and it's very kind of contained, and it's helped me get out of that.
I think it is
over prepping, right? It's like,
but it's a syllabus, yeah. But the syllabus is created by that group.
Yes.
So the egregore of that group is what creates that syllabus.
I have definitely.
Because I see you prepare. It's not like
there is definitely.
It's not like you go nilly-willy, like, oh, today I'm going to show up and do this.
Yeah. No, it's very intentional.
It's a thought, yeah.
Yes.
It's a thought and intention behind it. So it's not like you see the trajectory, but it's like a heat-seeking missile, yeah. So whenever it's like, it's always redirecting according with the feedback. And I think that is why it's important to you, that feedback that you get with them, in those classes.
Yeah, I definitely have, and I was telling them like so many things that I want to share with them.
And I think that's
And
good for you because you have very skillful practitioners and beginners. Yeah. So
Yeah.
how do you masterfully run that without, making the ones they're starting make you feel bad, and the ones they are having many years of training, how do you not feel like you're wasting your time?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's been really fun
The dance is important to get right.
Yeah, it's been really fun to see how the needs of the group have shifted. And we're kind of following the seasons in terms of topics and things. So we started in winter, which was actually really nice to start with that like kidney energy and like, okay, we're going to like get into the depths of some things. And like, then we shifted when the season shifted into spring, we shifted into spring with it. And that's been really fun. Like now we're in summer, which is super fiery, and like it's a lot more talk about like the heart, and like, August we're going to talk about like relationships and like, have all of these aspects of our life, right? And like, how do we practice with what shows up instead of like putting our head down? It's like very expansive.
I think that's the goal, yeah, how you practice with whatever shows up.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah.
When you're doing that, they give you a different perspective of the training and the levels of mastery that you need to get with it.
For sure. Yes. I think a lot of times some things that seem very day-to-day, just day-to-day information for me, I'm really learning are not day-to-day things that everybody knows.
What do you mean?
I don't know, just like the way that I think about things. And I'm, for example, we've been adding in like chi massage for the breast health. And there's a point in the center of the breast and the midline of the body that we focus on as part of that practice. And then in the last week or so, like I've had like a little skin rash show up there. And I was like, oh, okay, my heart is expressing something from the inside to the outside. And so I'm going to add in more clearing exercises for that area. And I'm also going to make sure that I move my liver chi because, that just ties into the breast health, right? Like to me, that just is how I think about it. But in teaching this class, I was like, oh, they might not think about this way. Like this is something that would be really helpful for me to share with them. Like when you start working with your energy, you may have manifestations that show up on that part of the body or on the channels that you're working on. And that can be a really good thing. And I was telling them, like, I'm not concerned about this. It's like a little itchy spot. It's nothing. But I noticed it. And then I was able to modify my practice because of that. Does that make sense?
Oh, 100%. I think it's so important, that piece, because it's like most people that try to learn from a book.
Right.
And I'm like, either books are great to get your I don't know. It's like a book is really good to spark some things in you, but like that, yeah. And the book says, work with that point. And
right.
then if you got a book and I say, work with that point, and then all of a sudden that book has rushed, I have done something wrong.
Right.
And I'm like, no,
it's good.
Yeah. But that's the thing most people don't understand when they say, oh, I'm going to learn meditation, I'm going to learn Qigong for a book. And
right.
I'm like, that's great.
It's a great inspiration.
Yeah. But what you do when things go south, or when you have this manifestation, what's next? Because they don't talk about that. It's like, and even if they talk about different side effects or manifestations or like rashes or whatever, they meditation sickness and all that. but each person is different. Yeah, so for that rush, for that person might be one thing. For another one, it might be grief.
Right.
This clear out of the skin. Well, which one is it? Well, we don't know because we don't know you.
Right.
And having someone, like a teacher that they can talk to is like, it's a day and night.
Yeah. I was telling this ladies today, I was like, I'm here as a resource for them. Like, bring all of those things that are showing up and like we can talk and brainstorm and share together. There's also some really amazing ladies in there who, I really want to see. I do want to have a live kind of gathering for that group in particular, because we have been online this whole time, which has been interesting. It's been great. And I also want to like do that in-person connecting at some point here too. It'd be fun.
Yeah, I mean, working online, I think it's a blessing, but eventually you have to have some sort of gathering.
Yeah. So, yeah. There's some people from kind of all over, so it'll be interesting to see how that comes to be. But
how is that? Because you have the online, so you've been teaching online for a couple of years, yeah, but also it's like you have done live classes.
Mm-hmm.
So which one you prefer, or it doesn't matter? How is that for you?
I think teaching on, I don't know. I do love them both, I would say. I think they're different. I think there's some things in person, if you want to have like fostering connection between the students, I feel like it's a lot easier to do in an in-person event. I think it's possible to do online, but I think it's harder. Harder's maybe not the right word. I think it takes more intention or more, they're just different designs entirely to do an online versus
the challenging piece that you have online. Yeah. So up to like the kerfuffle that we have with the COVID. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Up to that point, the way that we used to interact with screens, it was just to check out.
Right.
So when you had a screen in front of you, it was just to be like, I'm going to zone out because I want to get rid of the world. Yeah. So it was like, that was, I remember clearly when I started teaching and doing sessions via Skype back in 2008, 2009, and I used to use Uvu to do classes. People thought it was crazy, but that was the main thing, is that you have to teach the students how to behave with the screen, because it's like they used to check out. Yeah, so that's the screen. And I think after like 4 years, so everybody being in front of cameras and stuff like that, having better interactions and they pay more attention.
Yeah. And for that, for the Monday group, I really wanted that to be show up however you are kind of a space. Like I talked to them very early on about, I don't need you to sit straight up and like be right on camera like every single class. I was like, I want you to come and like have this be kind of a community feeling. If you want your camera off, that's fine. If you want to, come as you are, just come. It's kind of the message. And I said, with that, I will let you know if there are classes when we're going to be doing a certain kind of meditation, or, we did like a full moon cream meditation that was like on the summer solstice. And like that one, I was like, we're going to have a ceremony, it's going to be more of an event. Come more as if you were coming to that kind of an event versus like in class when we're having conversations and we're, we're shifted gears actually. So we're doing practice time together in the beginning, and then we do time for like a topic of the week. And then we have some together time to have conversations. Sometimes those two blend together, but that seems to be the flow of things. But I think the screens are interesting. We were talking too about, because it is summer, so it's about fire and it's about connection, right? So I was talking about, if they're wanting more connection within the group, like you have to first ask yourself, like, how am I showing up? What am I willing to, like, what level am I going to participate? What do I want to contribute, right? Like, what's my aim here? And so if they're wanting more connection, like, they need to show up in a more connecting kind of a way, right? Like, if they want to make deeper relationships, like reach out to someone in class who you've never met before, like have a facilitated conversation, whatever it is. But like we talked about that idea of how we show up in class, and just to have that check-in, which I think is the biggest part, is having those check-ins with ourselves of like, how am I showing up in my relationships, and how am I showing up at my work, and do I want to tweak anything? And that's an ongoing process, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you would like to share that I haven't asked you?
No, I can't think of anything. It's been fun. Thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you for being here.
It's so funny to chat with you across from mics, but it's been really fun.
Yeah. Well, probably this is going to be the first or multiple of these iterations.
Yes, I'd be happy to come back and chat about anything.
My producer is like in the other room right now.
You have a very good producer.
Yeah. So Francisco's been helping with the setup and cameras, and after like 45 minutes he get bored, so we stop having the video switching situations. But for the most part, the setup it's doing really good.
He's doing great. It's been really fun. I think that's the only thing I would add, is it's been really fun to watch you like do this podcast and putting it all together, and all the pieces that go into making it a really quality and inspiring piece of content out in the world. I think it's really been cool to watch.
Yeah, I hope it brings value. It's like it's like this is like one man operation, and it has a lot of trial and error, and like pissed off the people sometimes. But I hope I want to talk to people that I just find interesting, and it can bring value to the world.
Yeah, I think you're doing great.